Today, I'm going to give a glider pilot's review of the anime movie Blue Thermal. I'll do my best not to give away any spoilers about the movie, so even if you have not watched it yet, you should still be able to watch this video and enjoy the movie. Blue Thermal is an adaptation of a manga by the same name. It follows the life of Tsuru Tamaki-san, who has just moved to become a freshman girl at Aonagi University in Tokyo. At the beginning, her ambitions are to not appear too athletic and to find romance, but her plans are quickly derailed through her triggering events that lead to the damaging of a $150,000 sailplane. When asked how much it would cost to repair, it's still an astronomical number, and she passes out from shock over such an amount. This leads her to be coerced into joining the university's gliding club to help out with club operations. While there, she is taken up for an introductory flight by the club president, Kunamochi-jun-san, whereupon she falls in love with the sport. While flying, Kunamochi-san notices that she has an innate sense of the air around her, in spite of her not knowing the theory behind it, and only needs to be shown how to do something once, and so he begins to give her preferential opportunities to fly. And throughout the movie, she is able to develop her skills to be able to win competitions against pilots who have much more experience than she has, thanks to her innate sense and coaching for Kunamochi-san, who is a competition pilot himself. Now, while the movie is a drama and is really more about people and the relationships than actually flying, there are a lot of reviews that cover the storyline and do it quite well. This review is more about how well it represents the sport itself from the perspective of an actual glider pilot, so I'll be examining things that the anime gets right and some things that it does not. Before I continue, please help me by taking the time to subscribe to my channel, and if you like the video, click on the like button. It would be a big help for me to get above 1,000 subscribers so that I can get some revenue from my videos, which I'd put into buying equipment to better record some of my gliding content. Now, back to the review. When Tsuru-san is offered a flight, the first thing they do is work out the weight and balance of the glider, something critical to flying safely. If the pilot is in the front or solo in a one-seater, and they don't weigh enough to allow elevator authority to be able to put the nose down, the ballast plates are needed to be added in order to correct the overall balance of the aircraft. It's made clear that lying about your weight is dangerous. Experienced instructors and intro pilots are pretty good at estimating weight by just looking at the passenger. I've had people give me the wrong weight, and I've had to correct them on that, which is also shown in this anime. When hooking up the line to the glider, they also check to make sure the correct ring and weak link is in place, which is part of the checklist. There is more than one ring standard for hookups, and using the wrong one can result in damage to the release mechanism on the glider, which would be unsafe. While connecting the ESK-21, they show correctly the hookup for the center of gravity release, even though the front release is rendered in the glider. For a winch launch, which is what's happening in this case, this is the correct one to use. The wing runner's hand signals are the correct ones. The instructor is sitting in the back seat with the passenger in the front, which is how instruction is done, so that's correct as well. The animators drew a distinct sharp edge line where the wing touches the fuselage. In real life, these gaps are taped, so it would not appear like this, but I can understand how difficult that would be to render, so we'll ignore that missing detail. The rendering of the instrument panel in front of Tsuru-san is pretty accurate for an ESK-21. When the glider release is pulled, the animators actually showed the release control in the front move. This happens in real life, even though the release in the back was pulled. That's a level of detail I would not have expected to see. While on this first flight, Tsuru-san notices that the left wing lifts, even though the instructor didn't notice that. These subtle movements are important as they indicate which direction the lift is. The instructor notices the vertical speed indicator move to positive, and he immediately knows there is lift, but no cloud above him to mark the thermal. At this point, he exclaims that it must be a blue thermal, and it is from this insight and event and those words upon which the manga and anime get their name. It's a theme that is repeated a few times. The animation of the ESK-21 landing is done really well, and as you can see, it looks pretty close to the real ESK-21 landing. The image here of the real ESK-21 is missing the main wheel fairing on the bottom, so that would be one difference. Our club leaves it off to make it easier to check the tire pressure, and for local flights it doesn't really matter. Tsuru-san is sent for a medical, which is a requirement in my country for going solo, but in this anime they indicate it's needed also for anybody doing training, and maybe that's how it's done in Japan. The doctor correctly assesses that her heart rate is low and suggests that it must be because she's athletic. It's true, but she denies it, and he suggests that that could be a problem. The anime does not show her correcting her answer, but presumably she must have, or she would not have been able to get her medical certificate. She's also given a lot of books to study by club member Sorachi-san. It looks to be too much to me, but it is true there are a lot of things to study. Lots of folks assume that there's a lot of math, but in most calculations that you need to do, you can do them in your head. Most material has to do with the mechanics of flight, meteorology, and air law, but you will be tested on this knowledge when it comes time to do a written test. I'll give this scene a passing grade. In the anime, they are pushing gliders around on the ground by hand. Here in Canada and in other places, they usually pull the gliders on the ground with golf carts or small tractors, and not by hand, though the Air Cadet League of Canada does do it by hand. Tsuru-san exclaims that gliding really is like sports, and this is correct, but not for that reason. It can take a lot of stamina and endurance to fly long badge flights, especially when first starting out. And when I've been out for a busy day at the airfield, I always lose weight. When Kunomochi-san next takes Tsuru-san up for a flight, she's able to tell the bank angle by herself. Kunomochi-san thinks to himself that a normal human can't naturally tell their orientation in the sky. Well, that's not true for everyone, and most pilots are pretty good at it, though I do know some pilots who think they're banking more steeply than they actually are to stay in a thermal. Those pilots are usually the ones who don't stay aloft for very long. However, being able to quickly judge angles and orientation is a critical skill, so I'll give this a pass. During the first competition, there's an argument about their club flying a different model glider than the others. But this is never a problem in a competition. Not all clubs or competitors have the same model of glider, and so different models are assigned different handicaps, which equals things out. So this argument is a dramatization and does not reflect reality in a competition. After the flight, she passed out and does not come to for quite a while afterwards. This is the second time she passes out suddenly, and this would normally invalidate a medical certificate if the cause is not known or corrected. So this aspect of the story gets a failing grade. For the next competition, it's implied that Tsuru-san either fly a familiarization flight or study a map beforehand. In fact, any competitor would have been studying maps, airspace, features well beforehand. So this does not reflect reality, so I'll give a failing grade on that too. In the second competition, her competitor Hattori-san is in the same thermal and suddenly banks tighter to get closer to the core. While sharing a thermal, pilots are supposed to maintain a constant view of each other and not change attitude like that because it's dangerous. It makes for drama in the movie, but it's also not accurate. However, Tsuru-san also starts a more steeply banked turn. In the anime, it's then revealed that she has never done a steeply banked turn before. Steep turns and spiral dive handling is a requirement before going solo. So the anime here, I believe, is incorrect. But again, it is a dramatic touch. Sometimes a thermal is quite narrow, and a 60-degree turn is necessary. But more often than not, if you can climb well at 45 or less degrees, 60 degrees is not likely to make that much of a difference. The one thing I did not see in the anime were competitors towing their gliders and trailers to take to and from the competitions, or taking part or reassembling the gliders in order to transport them. This is normally done, and often they are just getting in and out of cars with no trailer in sight in the anime. To be fair, this would slow down the pace of the anime, but there are scenes where I see glider trailers, and in the closing credits they're either assembling or de-rigging a glider, so I'll give it a passing grade. Trailers are an integral part of competitions. Often, pilots will encounter weak conditions and not recover from them, and will end up landing out on a farm or paddock. And at that point, the trailer is really needed to retrieve the glider. Most glider pilots wear bucket hats, not baseball-style hats. Baseball hats often have a metal button at the top. In turbulence, if your belts are not tight, you could pop up and hit the canopy. Aside from cracking the canopy with the button, you could also get a pretty good dent in your head. As well, the long peak in front of a baseball cap can obstruct your view when trying to check above you. In a competition last year, I was about to slow down as I approached a thermal, and when I looked up as far as I could, I saw a glider low above me overtaking me. Well, had I pulled up, there likely would have been a collision. Had I worn a baseball hat, I likely would not have seen them. So I can't emphasize enough how dangerous baseball hats are when you're flying. Finally, bucket hats also keep the sun off your ears and your neck. We sure don't wear them for the style, but for practicality and safety. The Manuma glider port exists in real life, and sure enough, the student pilots there really do wear white coveralls and yellow or red baseball hats. Near the end of the movie, Tsuru-san suddenly ends up going to Germany with the intention of flying there to look for something. Here you see them towing a trailer to the airfield, and when assembled you can see that it is a Japanese registered glider. This detail is important because international air regulations allow a pilot to fly a glider from their licensed country in any other country. For example, I can fly my Canadian registered glider in the US, but I can't fly a US registered glider anywhere, including Canada, unless I have a valid US license. You can often get a license for another country through some application process, but it takes time. I was impressed that in the anime they did get this right. Overall, I'll give the anime creators a passing grade. They did a pretty good job paying attention to details, and differences were mostly to aid the pace of the movie or to add drama to keep things interesting. It does a much better job portraying the sport than I would have thought, and so I enjoyed it thoroughly. Have you watched this anime? What did you think about the portrayal of the sport of soaring? Please feel free to leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.